Hi, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. Thank you guys for waiting a few minutes. We're going to get started. So today, as you may know, we're talking about Apple Search Ads new placements and how you can make sure your campaigns are set up for success before the holiday traffic kicks in. First, quick introduction. My name is Matt. I'm the Director of Platform Growth at ironSource Luna. Amongst other things, I get to help advertisers like you set up and optimize Apple Search Ads campaigns and the data infrastructure for success that goes with it. I'll start with the update you probably already heard of. Recently, ironSource announced that our merger with Unity is complete. We truly believe that ironSource and Unity are better together. As one company, we'll be able to build the most comprehensive and compelling offering for app and game developers in the market today. So let me introduce ironSource in more detail. ironSource is building the world's leading growth platform for the app economy. ironSource has many growth solutions for monetization, analytics, and marketing. That's where Luna comes in. Luna is ironSource all-in-one marketing platform for app businesses. You can unify all your marketing data to a single access point, create and manage interactive creatives, and control and optimize your paid campaigns across multiple channels, including, of course, Apple Search Ads. Luna is an Apple Search Ads partner. Our solution helps advertisers with their Apple Search Ads campaigns, no matter what stage in the app lifecycle they're in. Our platform is built around having all your data in one place, taking bulk actions, and automating things like cost per tap bids to your main KPIs. And lastly, helping to discover new keywords to drive continuous growth. Hundreds of the world's leading apps, like the ones you see here, use Luna's solution to help scale up their Apple Search Ads campaigns. Now let's dive into the good stuff. A quick agenda of what we'll be discussing today. First, a look into the new placements and what they are. Then a tutorial on how to set up campaigns for these new placements, best practices for creating killer custom product pages, and finally, our tips for optimizing it to success. I want to say we're a few days before Black Friday and a month before Christmas. This is a time when many people are on their phones, spending more time than usual. So ramping up spend to capture this highly engaged audience is a huge opportunity for scale. So what are the new placements? First, let's talk about the existing placements as a quick refresher. Here you have search results ads and search tab ads. Search results display a relevant ad according to user's search query at the top of the App Store search results. Meanwhile, the search tab displays an ad at the top of the suggested list on the search tab before users enter a search query. At the end of September, Apple announced 2 new placements. This came just in time for the holiday season, since more placements means more opportunities to scale and take advantage of the surge in traffic we're about to see. First, there's Today tab ads, which display a high-impact creative on the homepage of the App Store, which has 600 million weekly visitors. As opposed to being driven by the search, this ad captures attention from the moment users hop into the App Store. To create a Today tab ad, you need a designated custom product page that follows a few key parameters. The second is the product pages while browsing placement, which displays ads to users when they're exploring and researching apps on the App Store. These ads appear on an app's product page at the top of the You Might Also Like list. You can define the app categories where they appear or run them across all relevant categories. Both new placements are aimed to help advertisers reach users across their entire App Store journey, when people first arrive, search for something specific, or research new apps, and go beyond capturing search intent alone. Whatever a user's intention for visiting the App Store, you can tap into it. Both of the new ad placements officially went live just the other week on October 25th, meaning if you start your campaigns now, you can still be an early adopter. It's important to note that like the other placements, these two run on a cost per tap or CPT pricing model, meaning you're only paying when someone actually taps on the ads. Okay, so now how do you actually set up these campaigns? The first step is going to your Apple Search Ads account. Tap Create Campaign and you'll get here. You'll see all 4 of the available placements. Let's start with the Today tab ad. Once you tap on the Today tab ad, you'll be asked to select the countries you want to run in. Note that you can run in all of the countries and regions where currently Apple Search Ads operates, except mainland China, which is not yet available. Then you'll need to fill out your billing information. And if you scroll down, you get here. This is where you choose the audience you want to run on, either reach all eligible users or choose specific audiences. You can target your Apple Search Ads campaigns according to location, age, gender, user, and device type. The deep audience parameters enable you to tailor your campaigns to your audience. These are the same targeting settings we have for the previous placements, so no extra surprises here. However, take into account that targeting specific audiences will restrict the reach of your campaigns and limit ads appearing to users who've turned off the personalized ad setting. Accessing more users is a big benefit of Apple's automatic optimization. It lets you reach those users with personalized ads turned off. This is also the place where you can choose the custom product page you want to use for your Today tab ad. Remember that custom product pages need to be set up and approved in App Store Connect first. We'll get into that a bit more later. Okay, now let's move to the second placement and set up a product page while browsing ads. Again, I'm here, I'm choosing my countries. Everything is the same as before, except here I'm also choosing my app category. There's all categories, which will show your ad across all relevant app categories. There's similar categories, which will show your ad to apps like yours. And there's other categories, which will show your ad to apps different than yours. There is room to experiment here, and it definitely requires testing and checking the performance before adjusting the settings. You may want to first go with the broadest option and then optimize based on performance if necessary. Then, if you scroll down, you can see a preview for what the product page ad will look like. Like we covered, each Today tab ad is created from a custom product page that you set up in App Store Connect. So let's dive into a few tips. Before we get there, a quick refresher on what custom product pages are. Custom product pages are essentially like website landing pages for the App Store. When users tap on an ad creative that's linked to a custom product page, they'll see that page instead of the generic App Store product page. You can create up to 35 custom product pages, and each one can be localized. You can change things like screenshots, promotional text, and app previews that all differ from the default page. Like we mentioned before, regular custom product pages need to be set up and approved in App Store Connect. You create your campaign, select your custom product page, and then submit it to Apple Search Ads for final approval. For Today tab ads, the ad creative built from it will need to be approved separately from Apple Search Ads. Approved separately by Apple Search Ads. Apple has some restrictions for making sure your custom product page gets approved, and there are additional creative guidelines for Today tab ads. You need to include at least 4 portrait or 5 landscape images. You can only include app screenshots, so no lifestyle images. Each asset must also include a screenshot of the app that takes up at least 2/3 of the asset area. Then Apple will create a preview based on those. A custom product page can contain both landscape or portrait images, but only one orientation will be displayed, and it'll automatically generate a blurred background from your assets. Your custom product page has to be in the default language of your campaign. So if your campaign is in the US, the custom product page needs to be in English. The Today tab ads are still relatively new to Apple Search Ads, so there isn't so much information about best practices just yet. However, we have a lot of tips and strategies to share with you based on our extensive experience with regular custom product pages. Let's dive into 4 strategies we recommend you try for the Today tab. The first strategy is starting off your new custom product page creation for Today tab from a blank canvas. Think what kind of audiences you want to bring to your app. Who are the most wanted and converting users? And what are your key features? You have to take the nature of the Today tab placement into consideration. This is a visual-driven creative. As opposed to being driven by the search, this ad captures attention from the moment users hop onto the App Store. Make sure you keep your broad target audience in mind and showcase key app features to grab their attention. Go broad and try not to be too niche here. Second, use a storytelling approach. The idea here is to make the user want to scroll through each screenshot until they get to the end of the story. For example, let's say your app is a scavenger hunt game. The first and second screenshot can show players looking for different prizes. And in the third screenshot, you can show them beating the level. Think of it like a carousel with connecting images. You want to stay interested enough to stay and find out what's next. Third, if you have existing custom product pages, think about what you're trying to achieve differently with your Today tab ads and consider what existing elements on your custom product page may transfer over well. Don't just try and reuse custom product pages created for ad variations. Also, pro tip that's only relevant during this time of year, try incorporating the holidays into your custom product pages. It's an emotional and nostalgic time. And we know that emotion is a key factor in increasing IPM and conversion rates. Experiment with things like switching out regular elements with holiday themed ones. For example, you can switch out an image of a sword with a Christmas tree, or use images of people wearing holiday clothing like Santa hats. Beyond what the custom product page should look like, here are some more best practices for making sure you're completely set up for success. First, get the ASO and UA teams to work better together. In many app companies, the ASO and UA teams are fragmented. So having regular syncs between them can speed up the process of updating custom product pages and sharing new insights on their performance. For example, the ASO team can learn what designs are appealing to users, and the UA team can learn what's performing well on the custom product page, which can inform the strategy of today's tab ads custom product pages, as well as the default product page. Also, measure everything. More on that later, but utilizing data to support your decisions and resource allocation can never hurt. If you don't know where to start, here's a real framework that we use. Think about the personas who are utilizing your app, and think about which personas are high LTV and low LTV users. For example, do you have audience buckets like brand and generic and sub-buckets inside? When you look at install volume or payers, what personas or demographics do you want to attract? This approach also helps when deciding on the new placement strategy. You need to keep in mind what personas you're going after and come up with the strongest offer for them. Again, consider the holidays here. Which personas are going to be spending the most this holiday season? Next, you want to research and brainstorm. Go to your competitor apps and look at what elements and products they're utilizing in their product pages. Then look at your specific app and which of your products or features of gameplay is very strong for different personas and demographics. Next part is converting your audiences. Now that you've done the research, what visualization do you need to utilize that already exists, or do you need to produce? Which ones resonate with the buckets we discussed before? This is where you should start testing on actually converting these audiences based on the tips we laid out earlier. When we talk about testing scale, start with different concepts, ideas, combinations, and look at the upper and lower funnel to see where to improve. You may need to iterate a few times to find the best results, just like any creative on any channel. Okay, now you've created and set up your campaigns. How are they performing, and how can you optimize them to perform better? First is to make sure you're analyzing the right KPIs. Much like many new tests, for my first round of testing these placements, we'd recommend starting with CTR. Why? We'll optimize for the deeper funnel in a second test, but for the Today tab, you're putting impressions in front of a large range of users. So you want to make sure you're attractive enough to get that initial first click. Similarly, for the product page, while browsing, I want to get that first click and also keep track of what targeting I used. Was it all apps or similar categories? Now let's focus on the custom product page. To analyze the custom product page itself, head to your Apple Search Ads account or a third-party tool like Luna. You'll see metrics like clicks, impressions, downloads, redownloads, and conversion rates. Just remember to compare these metrics to whatever your main KPI goal is. For example, if you have a high conversion rate on the custom product page, but the ROAS goal within the app is low, it may mean your targeting settings need to be updated, or changing creatives may have an impact. You may need a third-party platform like Luna to compare the performance of each individual custom product page to one another and see which ones are working well and which ones are not. Once you have your results, you can take the top performing versions and compare these as a bundle to your default product page. If it's relevant to the placements, such as in search results, from here, you'll see if the conversion rate on average was better than the default. If it is, it's probably worthwhile to invest more in these custom product pages and continue to put effort into adjusting, producing, and optimizing them even further. Similarly, if a placement doesn't have a default, we want to look across our data and see not just where to expand, but also where to invest our resources in new types of pages. You'll also want to analyze generic custom product page performance according to the keyword campaign they're attached to. Usually you analyze keyword performance by making a pivot table in Excel, but adding custom product pages as another dimension to the pivot table can complicate things. To make organizing insights easier, another option is to use labels, also known as tags, on a third-party platform. For example, you can label creatives in custom product pages and extract deeper insights like what concepts, elements, themes, or colors drive increases in performance. So now moving on to budget and bids. First, you need to make sure you have an additional budget for the new placements. If you don't have more budget to add, you'll need to reallocate the budget running on your existing campaigns and placements to spread across the 2 new placements. The best way to do this is to optimize your bids. Find places where you can lower bids on low performing campaigns, which will let you increase budget in other areas. Here's some tips to do that. Choosing bids doesn't have to be a very narrowly defined process. You can choose according to what you're willing to pay, industry benchmarks, anything that you have a hunch about that may work best as a starting point. Only after starting to run a campaign, you'll be able to see this bid range and understand if it performed well or not. Once the results are in, the next step is deciding whether to increase or decrease it. If an ad isn't getting a lot of impressions, that's a time to increase the bid to get higher reach and performance. If it is getting a lot of impressions, but the bid is high, you can try slowly decreasing the bid until it starts to negatively impact performance. It's helpful to ask these 2 questions when your ad is underperforming and your bid is high. Do you want to pause the campaign completely? Or do you want to just try lowering the bid? You can try decreasing the bid around 20-25% and see if it improves. If it is still not improving, pause the campaign while simultaneously increasing your bid on a high potential ad. Overall, you want to analyze your low performing ads and see whether to fix or remove them, while also analyzing your high performing ads and see if you can scale them. Now, for analyzing and optimizing the performance of the ads themselves, there's a few KPIs you want to look at. First, impressions. Impressions show you how many people have seen your ad. With the Today tab being a very visual placement, growing the number of impressions is one of the options to increase brand awareness as well, and can in the long run also influence your ASO. Remember that we're paying for taps only and not impressions, so increasing budgets with a lower bids approach can work. If you see that you have a lot of impressions, analyze whether those impressions are converting to downloads. You might want to adjust your bid to see if conversions will remain stable at a lower cost. Next, we're going to move on to analyzing your CTR. You can look at the click-through rate, or in other words, how many people are clicking on the ad. Click-through rate shows how appealing your ads are to potential users. This is important because your ad is your first interaction you have with them. In this next step, we're analyzing CPA. We talked about the process of choosing bids. Now that you have, it's helpful to understand which KPIs you should analyze and optimize. CPA, or in Apple known as cost per achievement, is a metric that shows the progress an acquired user made in your app. How much are you paying for someone to download your app from the ad, and then, for example, get to level 2 or book their first taxi ride? By looking at CPA, you can tell how many quality users you have, since they're actually engaging with the app. A low CPA shows you that users are both downloading your app and engaging with it. If your cost per achievement is high, you'd want to first decrease the bid. Note that an ad's performance is not always going to stay the same. Be sure to constantly look at your performance and find the balance between your spend, performance, and reach. For example, let's say you increase the bid for the Today tab placement, and the next week, instead of $66 in spend, it's $500 without conversions. Increasing the bid may cause your performance to decrease. Essentially, even though it's at a higher scale, it's not performing as well as it did when on a lower scale. That said, incremental increases are going to act differently at different levels of scale. So defining some sort of marginal return on investment, or ROI, is a good way to find balance. That's it. Thanks so much to everyone for listening. I hope you came away with some new insights into the newest Apple Search Ads placements and strategies for increasing spend before the holidays. To wrap up, I just want to show you some additional resources we have on Apple Search Ads. We understand that the channel is growing in importance, so we're making a lot of content to help advertisers like you scale up. First, you can learn more about Luna's solution for Apple Search Ads at luna.is.com/Apple Search Ads. There you'll also find blogs, guides, and video tutorials with tips and best practices, plus tons of case studies from other marketers on how they scaled up installs with Luna's solution. Now, I'm saying we do have some time for Q&A. I'm happy to open the floor for questions you might have. You can type them in. Some of you already sent questions in advance for us to answer, so we'll start with those. I'll give you guys 1 second just to type them in while I take a sip of water, and then we'll move on to them. So one of the questions that was asked is, what exactly are these placements addressing that the other placements aren't? And I think if we go back to when we talked about the user journey in Apple Search Ads and where these new placements fall in, we're now meeting users in different steps. So we have the Today tab that is finding users right when they enter the App Store and is very visual. The product page is an opportunity to put an ad that you might also like area in a store page. So as a user scrolls down, if they're unsure of what to download, you have an opportunity to get their attention. So I think if we look back to the previous placements, these are two new areas in a user journey that we're now able to meet these users and convince them to download our apps or take whatever action might be important to you. See, we have another question here. Recommendations for apps optimizing Apple Search Ads campaigns towards ROAS or purchases. So I think the key thing to keep in mind is that you need to work backwards from your key KPIs in the funnel to what is an accurate kind of CPT or cost per tap. What events are in between your key KPI and those clicks? And by that, I mean, how many clicks do you need to get to an install? How many installs do you need to get to a payer? Maybe a subscription or a key event. What's the average revenue from these specific events? And with this, you can find an ideal CPT or cost per tap. I think one of the key things to keep in mind, and we said this before, that not everything is always going to perform the same. The market's always changing. So in this instance, bid automation can help. Since each keyword might have a very unique funnel, different keywords might have different values to you, and you really want to be on top of these keywords in terms of their budgets. So in the instance of the new product pages, you can look at it the same way, except with the assets and combinations of assets you use inside of the product pages as important factors. So instead of looking at keywords in this instance, we're looking at the actual assets that we're using inside of our product pages. And this can have a significant impact on your funnel. And you'll want to work backwards on this also. So we look at the results and work backwards to find an optimal cost per tap that we can bid on that's profitable for us. This next question is very much along the same lines, but I think goes into a bit more detail. How do we fight low TTR or tap through rate, or sometimes called click-through rate, and conversion rate and high CPIs in today's tab Apple Search Ads campaigns? I think there are two things to consider on this question. One of them is depending on the campaign type, what's my targeting, and what is the custom product page itself? I'd recommend looking at this similarly to kind of any sort of creative analysis you might be doing. So if we're talking about a low tap through rate and a low conversion rate, the tap through rate can be a signal of low engagement on the initial tap, and the low conversion rate when the user gets to the page is also showing a low conversion. So to improve these results or improve my CPI, in the end, I'm going to need to improve both of these. Are the assets I'm adding engaging enough to a broader audience? So we want to remember that on the Today tab, I'm looking at a fairly broad audience, and that image or the images I'm putting are being turned into something that needs to be across everybody. Also, we don't want to be misleading on those initial assets or the creatives that we're using. So we want to make sure we're maintaining relevance throughout. So the users who click on that aren't getting to the App Store page itself and then surprised and not downloading, and then we end up with a low CVR. So I would treat this kind of as a creative test. Take a look at which creatives might have the broadest reach or be the kind of most engaging from a broad spectrum, and then work backwards there. I have some questions here. Have you seen better performance with landscape or portrait CPP? I would very much recommend trying both. I do think it depends on what niche or what vertical you're in. A lot of users are kind of going portrait, but it's very important to give both of those options there. So you're not limited to just one, you're capturing all the uses that are possible. So we have one question. How many product pages would you suggest to have available? And keep it manageable if you currently only run one. So I think that's a great question. And I think this kind of goes back to a bit of resource allocation. When we look at custom product pages, this is also a great way to test and look at and overall improve our ASO, because we can learn things from these custom product pages that we can use to improve our organic results. So I would recommend taking a look at what we already have available. If you're running a very large or a decent sized channel mix, take a look at what creatives have the biggest broad appeal, and then maybe how can I repurpose these with the idea in place that on my Today tab, it's a very broad very broad number of users. And on my similar product pages, I can go inside of there and I'm actually can target that to similar ones. So we want to just make sure, we can try and repurpose things that are available if that's a limitation. But we also want to keep in mind that this is a new placement, and just because something works somewhere else doesn't mean it will work here. So I would recommend treating this as a creative test. Start with 2 or 3, as we said, a blank canvas, and move in and be able to kind of iterate based off of that. Interesting question here. Do you have any experience with CPP on other channels? So I think what we've seen is over time, custom product pages have been starting to be adopted or have been adopted for a while on different networks or media channels. We do overall see that this can be a great tool. And especially if you're using them on other channels, it's a great opportunity. Once again, you do have to adjust these a little bit for certain placements, but it's a great opportunity to use these overall. And I guess we have one more question. And actually, we're almost out of time, which is perfect for us to end on this. Why should we include the ASO team when CPPs are not available for organic users? Organic and paid users have different consumer behavior. Absolutely agree. You will overall see a difference in how organic and paid users behave, once again, in your app, but also in how they kind of behave in the App Store. And so I think this is a great opportunity to learn. If you have different ideas of things you've wanted to test on your default page with your organic users, this is a great opportunity to learn what's engaging and what might work. Now, once again, it's not a clean, absolutely clean A/B test, but this is an opportunity to see, are there creatives that are driving great results on my custom product pages that I've seen, I've tested them in 1, 2, 3 different variations and they're performing well. Maybe that's an opportunity to move that over. Once again, we do have to take that with a grain of salt. It's not a clean A/B test. And as we said, these are different, they do have different consumer behavior, but it is a good opportunity to work together and be able to overall improve performance across the board. So I think that's it. We are at time. I really thank you guys for joining, and I hope this was useful and you're able to now jump in and do a lot more with your custom product pages, test these new placements if you haven't, or continue to grow and scale them if you're already working with them. Thank you guys so much for joining, and have a good rest of the morning, evening, wherever you might be.